Hello and welcome to this video presented by Advanced Data Business Systems. ADBS has been developing enterprise software since 1981 for small to large organizations. This is the Advanced Development Shell Series, and I am Thomas Wade Gonder. This is video 2112, in which we will discuss some deeper concepts and functions of the login form in the Advanced Development Shell, or ADS. This is the prerequisite video. I assume you know how to enter a user code and password, how to continue on to the menus, and the timeouts for form entry. I will be discussing the following topics in more detail in this video. I won't bother reading it. You can pause and read it if you want. Let's take a look at the login form as it might be presented and filled in by the guest administrator in the evaluation database. Notice that it is in English. The user has a choice of languages, which can be limited or added to by the developer. Also notice that this text box is asking for a user code. Is a user the same as an entity? No. Let's quickly review entities. These are all the different entities in the entity form. The entity form was briefly covered in video 1002. Entities are any living being, not necessarily human beings, or entities can be a legal construct, as well as organizations and fictitious characters. All entities are not users of the application software, but all users have to have an entity record. User codes and passwords are case sensitive. That means the shift key might be involved. The user has a one-to-one relationship with the entity record. To understand this, let's look at some of the ID-related fields on the two different forms. Here we have the entity form and the ID for the entity record. It is 1001.0102. Notice over here in the user record, there is an ID also, and it is 1001.0102. That is a coincidence because both records were created from scratch and they were the first record created with the auto ID. However, look down here, you'll see entity ID for the user form. This form goes against a user table, whereas this entity form goes against an entity table. But they are linked by the entity ID, which is a match here for the foreign key to the primary key over here. When we log in, we use the display code because we don't use the actual ID. If you would like a deeper explanation of the role of auto numbers and why we don't use them for identifying a record in most situations, see Richard Russ' great video lesson on the topic. In the ADS, we create our own auto numbers, which is why they look a little different from what you might expect in normal access. If there are errors in the configuration file, then the user will get an error message. A system administrator or developer can identify the configuration or any form startup problem by the error number. For security reasons, we don't give the user an explanation of the error. It normally means the database has been corrupted or some user has gotten tricky trying to change the startup parameters. We don't want to help them in that endeavor. A warning message may be displayed in the login form, while the background color of the form will change to a yellow. In this case, there is a conflict with expected time zones and the workstation's current time. In the environment verification form, the entity name is shown for the user. Each backend has a unique network resource code. If properly administered by the system administrator, this allows for a unique record ID across the entire WAN without the need to implement the access replication ID as an auto number. If there is the possibility of synchronizing various backends in a hierarchy, it's important that no two records anywhere in the application module found on the WAN or its backends contain the same IDs. It is important that the user verifies that he or she is on the correct backend. The user also needs to verify which client database they are working in. For example, accountants doing bookkeeping for different clients need to have a way to have a different database file for each client. For the front end where the user is working, the device name along with the Windows account name is shown. Here's where the data comes from in the Windows settings, for the machine and for the user. Any unexpected change in these settings should be reported to the system administrator. The location and currency are set in the configuration file and cannot be changed at login. They are here for reference and checked for unexpected changes. Likewise, the expected times are set in the configuration and are not changed during login. Unexpected changes should be reported to the system administrator. Let's start the demo and watch Fred log in. Here is the Access startup screen for Access 2021. I'm going to run this demo file. Fred enters his user code, which is the display field from the user record, and then the password, E0022 and YABA, tab. If Fred enters either field incorrectly, the Accept command button won't activate. Fred just entered YABA without an uppercase Y. Fred tries again with the proper uppercase Y for his password of YABA. E0022, tab YABA, tab. The Accept button hasn't gone active, and if we look up in the status area, we can see that the application module for login is not available and will be later at 11:30. Off camera, I just made the login module available again. Fred will log in and start checking the environment verification form. E0022, tab YABA, tab Accept. If Fred waits too long, then the entry will be blanked out and Fred must enter his login data again. This is a security measure should Fred walk away from the workstation without completing login. Before entering the user code, the user may change the language if the user desires something different. Using the configuration file, the login form doesn't have to start only in English. Thank you for watching this video, and here are the developer videos that will help you understand in greater detail some of the topics briefly mentioned here.